And we are live. Good morning, everybody. This is Patrick Lee, your host. Welcome to Midweek Motivation Live, coming to you live from Studio One downtown in the First Bank Southwest Tower, 18th floor. My office, I like to call Studio One. Drinking a fresh cup of coffee here today in my AMC, it's backwards, AMC Mortgage Cup. Amanda McCampbell, a wonderful mortgage lender at AMC Mortgage. You need a home loan, I can certainly connect you up. We got a great show today. We're going to be talking with a new friend of mine back east, and we're going to bring him on here in just a minute. We're going to get into some talks about his life, his road to success, and some business topics right after this. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Good morning, George. Everybody say hello in the comments to George Zapata.
Good morning, Patrick.
Hey, George.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing quite well. How's the weather up there?
Oh, the East is hot. We are in a heat wave.
You're in a heat wave. So tell me how hot it is. Now tell me you're in Berwick?
We're at Berwick, Pennsylvania. It's a northeast PA. So we have a lot of humidity here. It's not my stepson lives in Vegas, and it's a little different. The heat.
Oh,
here,
sure.
95 and humid is hot. It's uncomfortable hot.
I imagine. We we're Texas, so we've got you beat, but it's been about 104, 105, but not it's Amarillo is North Texas, what they call it, the Panhandle of Texas, not really North Texas. We're beyond North Texas, so a lot more dry here. South Texas
is a lot better.
Yeah, better. South Texas, Houston, San Antonio, they're going to have that humidity. We're pretty dry, so it's still unbearably hot. I love the heat. I can't deny it. Grew up on the Oregon coast on the beach, and a hot day out there was 75 degrees. So I'm kind of happy with the heat, but it's been unbearably warm this year.
Yeah, it certainly has, and I don't know if dry heat is different than humidity heat, but it's hot. Yeah. It just is in general just hot.
It's hot. So tell the viewership here, we're Midweek Motivation Live now on all major podcast platforms. So just kind of like your show, we're going to get into that. You host a podcast of your own, but here on the Midweek Motivation Live, we're here to motivate you to success in every area of life and to stretch people's thoughts, processes, help them understand that you can do it too. If an old guy like me can do it, so can they. You kind of have a story like that a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you came from, and kind of what you're doing today.
Well, my story is rather unique. And I say that because it's almost the same as everybody else's who has done things in their life and got to a successful level. Not to say that I'm ultimately successful, but everyone goes through something. Sure. I was born in New Jersey. In Jersey City, New Jersey. It's an area not the greatest place. My father, and when I was at the age of 5, he left. He abandoned a mother with 3 kids. Left. Wow. Now, it's different when you get divorced.
Oh, yeah.
Leaving and abandoning, that's different. So there you are in New Jersey. Now, this is back in the 80s. It wasn't like it was where they're going after your check and there was no child support. It wasn't like that.
Right.
That just started coming around towards the late 80s when they're like, okay, this is an epidemic. You got to figure this out, because you got moms who don't have any kind of income, and my mom never took a check welfare, never.
Wow. Hats off to her.
So we struggled. If it wasn't for my uncle was in the finance industry. He actually purchased the house that to keep my mom, my grandmother, it was her mom, so it was his mom too, in the house with 3 boys. But there was only such a long period of time that he could do both. He could only do both.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we had to, we're foreclosed and had to move out. Or whether he sold the house, I wasn't quite sure, but we had to go. But either way, and in that period of time, we spent time jumping from apartment to other apartment to whatever, and it was just the financial issues were something that I still to this day have PTSD.
Oh yeah,
I always worry. Is there going to be enough to cover these expenses? So at the age of 14, believe it or not, my cousin said, we needed money. We just needed money. However, we brought the money to him. My older brother worked. Most of his check went to the house. And I'm the middle, and my youngest was just too young to work. But I was 14 at the time, and I said, I needed the job. I need something. And my cousin worked at a bagel shop, believe it or not. And there's bagel shops all over Jersey, New York. There's a bagel shop. You could walk in and get a job anywhere if you at a bagel shop. So at that point, at 14, I decided I'm going to go in to see this guy. I went in, but there was no room for me. But my cousin worked at a bagel shop 21 miles away from where I lived. 21 miles. So it was Westwood and Glen Rock, New Jersey. Now, Glen Rock is a high-end area. It's Bergen County.
Yeah.
Per capita, one of the highest grossing incomes is in Bergen County because you have all the New York Yankees, the Jets, the Knicks. They all live there because it's right across the bridge. It's a nice area. So that's where he was. But I was 21 miles away from there. So to get there, I would jog there in the morning because the guy gave me an opportunity. He said, "You have an opportunity." At the time, I was just starting to box, and that's what I always wanted to do. We were all fighters. Our whole family, we were all fighters. So that was a good exercise for me. I said, "Hey, if I can get there, I could jog, I could work, do what I got to do, and I could get paid for it too." Unfortunately, the one thing that went to the wayside was schooling. I never liked school, never did. A lot of it had to do because it was in a public school, and it was two sides of the track. You had the wealthy and you had the poor.
Oh yeah.
Somehow I was mixed in between the wealthy people and a couple sprinkled in of that did not have the money.
Yeah.
So of course I didn't have the Michael Jordan shoes. I didn't have so I just never went. And I remember my senior year, they said to me, "You have a choice. You've exceeded the limit of 21 days. 21 days was the rule they put in. If a student is absent 21 days, and this was the year after I'd already exceeded that mark. They put it in 21 days.
Yeah.
Me and another kid were like competing to see who would be absent the most. But I always would work. I'd leave school and I would work.
Yeah.
So when that went in, he said, "You have a choice. You could either walk now, leave, just pay us what you owe us for the locker." There's a $5 fee for a lock.
Oh my gosh.
Padlock. You want a $5 padlock. And I said, "Okay," and then leave. I gave him the $5 and I left. Now I was only 17, so I couldn't sign myself out.
Right.
At the time I was seeing a therapist because of what was going on with my father not being there. He actually signed a paper that said you have to let him go through and get him a diploma, sort of. You would get him through so he can get out of school. So did I get a diploma? No. I didn't graduate, but did I get a diploma? Yes. There is one that says George Zapata somewhere out there, but I did not finish school. I just left, and that was the last time I ever went.
You got a certificate of completion that says George completed 12 years of education in our public school system, and so did I. That's what I have.
Okay, yeah. So similar to that. That's what
I got. I got the same thing. I hated school. I attended because I had to, and they had told me like the middle of my senior year that I had failed one or two credits my freshman year. I was going to have to come back, do another year, go through summer school to get my diploma. I said, "Sayonara, see you later." I don't think so. I'm done with 12 years. They said, "You get to walk, but you're going to get to walk with a certificate of completion. You won't get a diploma." I said, "Yeah, what good's a diploma?" Right. So just like you, I started working at 14. My parents didn't even know. I went to work, wash dishes in a restaurant because I'm very similar to you. We were a very poor family. My dad didn't leave, but with 5 kids, we just didn't make much money. And if I wanted to have anything of my own, I was going to have to go out and earn it. So at 14, I went and got a job in the evenings at a fish and chips restaurant, washing dishes in the back room until they found out they couldn't pay me because I lied about my age and I was too young, and they had to let me go. But I had 2 paychecks under my belt and my business mind was on the way. You know what I mean?
Now, did you when you got your checks, did you give them to your parents for the household? Or did you keep them yourself?
I went and bought clothes and food. I did buy food for the household, and I went and bought school clothes for myself.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, at that point, though, you were you're making a living for yourself at
Yep.
14, which nowadays is unheard of.
Unheard of.
I
Yeah.
mean, I did have one person I hired who was 14. We just had come in during the pandemic. There was nothing we could do. We had to get what we could.
Yeah.
And 14, they're just not mature enough at that point to work.
Sure.
But we did put them in. And I think at that point you were a little more mature at
Oh, yeah.
14, growing up the way you did. So that being said, we're now where we are because of that, which is hard to explain. But at 14, you get a lot under your belt there, and a lot
You
of
sure
hard
do.
lessons on the job
Oh,
training.
yeah. Absolutely.
So after I did that, I was still working at the bagel shop, and I just didn't want to work at a bagel shop. I said there has to be something else. Now I did think I was going to be a professional fighter, so I would go and I would fight, and I would come and I'd still work at the bagel shop. But I just didn't. I wanted some substance, and I said my mom never owned a home, like
Yeah.
owned it. She never paid it off. I'd always lived in a part. I lived by my own at 17 because I just moved out. A friend of mine had owned a complex, and he let me stay there until I turned 18. Then I could legally do the paperwork. He let
Sure.
me stay there. I paid rent. My boss at the time took the money out of my check because he was friends with the guy who owned it.
Mhm.
So he was guaranteed the money because it would come right out of my check and right to him. So I did that, and I wanted some substance. I did. And like you say, there's a time where you really want to do something in your life.
Yeah.
Forget about the school stuff because that's over now. That's over. You can't go back and say, hey, redo. Doesn't happen. You're
Nope.
out. So I decided what I'm either going to be a professional fighter, or I'm going to do something with the bagels because it's all I ever did. And I was very fortunate. And this is what I tell people who want to be mechanics or, air conditioners. I said, go work for somebody for nothing or minimal, but do extra. Do extra.
Yeah.
What does it hurt you? You do the extra for no pay or minimal pay. Now it sounds
Sure.
crazy. Because there are people there who will take advantage of that. But if you find that one person who you can latch on to, who owns a business, who does something, he will take you further in a shorter period of time. Because he can see through that. He sees the determination. He sees this guy wants to be somebody.
That's good.
Good owners do it.
Yeah.
So I would go an hour early and leave later. And I said, you don't have to pay me. I'm going to go take every flour bag off the thing, clean underneath where nobody cleans, put it back, and then restack all the flour. I'm going to go in the basement where all the bags the grocery bags are all over the place. I'm going to stack them neat and do that. And I did that for 2 years for him. Then a friend of ours opened up a bagel shop in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. It's a college town. It's called Bloomsburg University. Okay. And he wanted me to go. But at the time I was only 17. And I couldn't get into a contract legally and federally. You can't.
Sure.
My mom wouldn't sign. I mean, what was my mom? She wouldn't sign for anything. So we ended up, he wanted me to go, but I said, no, I'm not going to go. I want to stay with Joe because he was like my dad almost. He showed me everything from how life is going to be to women. He showed me everything. Joe did. So I stayed with him. Well, 1 year later, I turned 18. I said, look, I want to do something. And he said, let's go out to Pennsylvania. Of all places, Pennsylvania. When I say rural, you're going from a city to here. When I saw a deer for the first time, I thought it was a large dog. I didn't really get it.
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And, so many people were telling me, you're crazy. You're crazy. That place is the sticks. You'll never be successful there. Now, Bloomsburg is a college town. There's 12,000 college kids there. You got a captive audience there.
Sure.
And he does very, very well. He does very well here. Very well. Bloomsburg. He has multiple stores. He has multiple stores in Bloomsburg. So I went out there. We would drive around just the town. The town said, would you want to go here? And I had a map. And I would do the population and do all that stuff. And a very funny story. We're driving down Route 11. It's a Route 11 there. And he would see the signs. Like he'd say, oh, Chick Shinny. There's 10,000 here. Oh, no, it's out. The Stillwater. 4. Well, one of the signs says hunt safely. Meaning, hey, don't have your gun out, whatever. He said hunt. I'm looking for the town, hunt safely. I'm looking around like, Joe, there's no hunt safely here. No,
it's not a town, Joe.
No, yeah, I didn't know.
Oh, that's good,
you
man.
can walk out with, who that was so foreign to me. I didn't even
Yeah.
know. So I go out there and we full upon Berwick, Pennsylvania. We're there. There's used to be a CVS right on the main street, and it was empty.
Wow.
So we thought, let's buy the building, then put the bagel shop in. So here I am at 19, owning it because it was almost a year. We found this place in Berwick. We bought the building for only 300 grand, remodeled the whole thing. We bought it. Take that back. We bought it for 120, remodeled it to 300. That was the max loan.
Yeah.
And built the bagel shop there. That was 27 years ago. It was 1996. I was 19 years old. So I got handed a checkbook and had no idea what I was doing. Not a clue.
Oh my gosh.
So obviously I didn't have, and I don't know about, no, let me ask you, when you first started getting into your business, did you even know did you have a clue what was going on in your life? Like, did you say, okay, this is how you do a P&L statement, or did you not?
Not at all. I had no idea. I had a drive inside of my spirit, something inside of me that was driving me, telling me that I could do more, but I had no idea how. And I went through a few years, through my teen years. I ended up moving to Texas with my best friend shortly after school. He wanted to move down here. I didn't. He didn't want to come alone. We had a new wife. They were super young. I mean, I was 19, and I was working in a burger joint, and a guy came through the driveway with a manila envelope with a cassette in it. And it was a motivational speaker. It was Earl Nightingale from way back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was all about having a better life, insights for a powerful, successful life. And that just resonated with me. And I knew, we call it, in your knower. I knew that I could do more. I had no idea how, but without having someone to attach myself with, kind of like a Joe that you had, I went out sort of on my own and just started seeking out people.
So when you did that, did you look at it as somebody coming to you in your life, whether it be a sign from the Lord or sign from somebody to say, this is where you want to be? And you never got tired, right?
Right.
Also, like, you want to absorb as much as you can, right? And it sets you to a different path.
It did.
Not that you didn't have bumps in the road, and you could talk about that too.
Plenty.
So, that's how I did it. And I would, we struggled at first because who knows bagels out here? Nobody.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania. Do you have a lot of Amish in that part of Pennsylvania, or are they more western?
Amish is more south. More south. That's by Lancaster area, Reading. That's there. Now we do have some out western PA towards where I do a lot. I do most of the universities towards that way. So we do see the horse and buggy as we're delivering out there. But we really are. It's a unique valley. It's the Wyoming area valley. So we have the power plant down the street. We have the university here, which it's in my friend's bagel shop's town, but not ours. But there's still people go there. So it's a little bit more modern.
Yeah.
But if you go southern, you're going to get that Amish. If you go northern, you get more of the city. Cities more north, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area. That's where you get those.
I spent some time in Worcester, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Big Amish town.
Big Amish. Yep.
Oh yeah, big Amish town. They have the right of way. I found that out in the streets driving down the road. It's like, don't pass a horse and buggy. You will get pulled over by the Amish cops, and you will get a ticket.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. They're extremely protective of the horse and buggy there,
which
we found when we were driving down too.
Yeah.
So as we're struggling, at the time, so now that I had three partners. I had Joe, he became my partner.
Yeah.
Don, who owned Bloom and Bagels, he's a very successful bagel guy. He's very successful. I think he's got about 4 or 5. Very successful. And me. The only problem with that is partnerships are the only ships that don't sail.
That's right. 100%. Okay?
So we're all 33 and a third. And I tell this story to everybody. I love Joe. He was like my father, but he was out, meaning he was in New Jersey, Bergen County. He's not going to be here. Don is 5 miles up the road. Mm-hmm. So he's going to come in. Okay, so he's going to come in. Now, if there's dirt on the floor and you're running the business, I was the working partner.
Yeah.
Okay, who's picking up the dirt?
Yeah, it's going to be you.
It's going to be me. But if he comes in, what's he going to say?
It's your fault.
Hey, there's dirt on the floor. You just got to come up, right? So immediately that starts the tension.
Yep.
So I tell everybody, my advice to everybody, don't have partners. It never works. It does not work. No matter how much. Now, Joe, I talk to every day.
Yeah.
Every day. He does very well. Now he hasn't sold his bagel shop, and I'll get to that as to how I became my own owner. So Don goes out and gets all the supermarkets, huge supermarkets in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Garrity's supermarkets. They have about 12, 13 now. So all day, all night. This was a 24/7 operation. Now, at the time, I was 19, 20 years old. I could stay up all night. No big deal. Party. Doesn't matter. I could do it all. And I never drank. I've never drank, never did drugs, never smoked.
Good for you.
So I was always working. Not good for the relationship. I could tell you that.
No.
It wasn't good, which we'll get to that too. And I did that all the time, and then you get burned out a little bit of it because that's all I ever did. So 5 years in, my partner Joe in New Jersey, like my father, he was like my dad. His store burns to the ground. So he needs cash. Now you had insurance, but slow. They're not going to pay you right away. Say, hey, here's the $1 million.
Yeah, he needs the money.
Wow, it's cash. That was my opportunity. And I said, well, here's the deal. I will pay you out. I want the building. I want the business, but the other guy's got to go too. I will not have a partner.
Yeah.
Kind of like a mafia move. I don't want any partners.
I like it.
I want to be the boss.
I like it. Yeah.
So that's what I did. And unfortunately, I got a $400,000 deal paying them out $20,000 a piece.
Yeah.
So it was a great move for me. Yeah, it was great.
Ballsy. How did you format that? How did you formulate that plan in your head?
Well, to be honest with you, I knew Joe wanted out.
Yeah.
Because I think he was tired of me and Don fighting. I think he wanted out. Don, I think, is so successful. He didn't $20,000 to him. He's like, man, just give me $20,000 and I don't have to deal with you anymore.
Yeah.
I wanted to give more to them each, but then I would have less. What if it failed? Because now I'm on the island by myself.
Yeah.
There's no boats to get out. I'm here by myself. I wasn't
so
married.
They really sold their liability to you for $20,000.
Correct. Total 40.
So it's probably a godsend to both of them in a different way.
It's true. Yeah, because we weren't exactly lighting the world on fire when we had, because we'd wait for those Garrity's checks because that's a 30-day pay period. So that first initial cycle, you're putting out 10 to 20 grand before you get a check back, and that still continues. So either you're working from the bottom all the time. It's cash flow, but you're still working from the bottom.
Always behind. Yep.
The transmission goes out, or you need new tires, because I had trucks on the road. It's expensive.
And equipment, kitchen equipment, baking equipment. None of that's cheap.
And you were in a bakery business. That stuff ain't expensive. It's not cheap. $40,000 for an oven is about what you're getting.
Yeah.
And how do you find people to work on it too? They're not cheap either. $150 an hour.
You want to hear a quick, short story?
Help me.
Friend of mine owns a local restaurant. Great friend. I'll be going there for lunch today. And he has a 60-quart mixer, Hobart dough mixer. Yeah. And the lift goes out on it. Oh. I haven't been in a bakery I haven't stepped foot in a bakery in 15 years. And the Hobart guy is always about 6 weeks to 2 months out. And he called me and says, hey, man, you want to come back in the kitchen? I'm like, sure. So I go back in his kitchen. He goes, can you diagnose my mixer? It's not working. Diagnosed it, Googled the part, found it on Amazon, had it shipped, and went and dismantled his mixer and had it back up and running in a couple of hours. And he's eternally grateful. And fixed his equipment. It's about a $30,000 machine, and I fixed it for about $150.
And I tell you, just that story right there, That is
Yeah,
Berwick. That's Berwick. There's people
that's
that come in here all the time, and I'd be like, "Hey, I got this issue over here." Bang, they could fix it, and they could do it.
You're like, "Yeah, man, I'll hook you up. It's all good."
Yeah, man, that's
Yeah,
amazing. This is a great. That's a great story. Stories
and
like that.
awesome.
I love the stories like that. They're
Yeah,
great.
man. That's what we do. We grew up doing it. You know, your dad left. My dad stayed. My dad was in the medical field. He ran the ambulance service for our hometown.
Mhm.
So he was gone a lot because he worked all day and all night. Always had a big radio on his hip. Every time the radio went off, he'd get a call and have to go be on an ambulance run somewhere. But we moved out to the country when I was a kid, bought a 2-story farmhouse, and we fixed everything ourselves. We
Mhm.
didn't, you can't afford to pay people to come fix it. You replace
Yeah,
your water heater, you work on your heaters, you put on your own roof, you put in your own new windows if you can afford a window, whatever. You just learn how to fix your car, you learn how to fix your tractor, you learn how to fix any kind of equipment, and they call it a country boy can survive for that reason. We
right.
can.
Yeah.
We don't call the repairman.
Okay. You mind if I ask you a question, Patrick?
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
so your dad works. He's running this ambulance thing, and something happens. He's gone. Right. How did you? So I guess that your dad just was worked a lot.
Yeah,
Okay. How did that affect you when were you there? Like, you have children now?
I do.
Okay.
Two grown daughters.
Okay. But as they were growing through, coming up, did that ever bother you that, okay, your dad was never around as much, and not because he left, but because he
Right.
was working? Because I'm dealing with that a little bit now. And your dad had to work. There was no option.
Mhm.
How did that make you feel growing up, where you're saying, "Wow, I really wish my dad was here more, but then maybe I wouldn't have the roof over my head." Like, how do you balance that?
That is something that I battled for years,
Mhm.
and I I have a brother that'll probably watch this, and he knows. I have other family that doesn't talk to me. I moved away and made somewhat of a success out of my life. There's some people in my family that don't like that. But a lot of
Mhm.
my friends that do, they're very proud of what
No,
I've
don't
done.
downplay that. Don't downplay that.
Absolutely not.
Mhm.
You're 100% correct. And I battled that, and I've shared on the show. My dad passed away at the beginning of COVID from colon cancer that
Oh,
had metastasized from asbestos in his lungs as lung
mm,
cancer from when he was in the Navy on a ship. So I moved to Texas and became self sufficient. And you've seen that statue of the guy in stone, the self made man. He's
correct.
chiseling himself out of a rock. I
Mhm.
kind of took that mindset onto myself. I took fathership from preachers, from business owners, managers I worked for, kind of like you did with Joe. And I took the best of what I had and still could call my dad whenever I wanted to. And he retired later on.
Mhm.
But I resented that for a lot of years that he wasn't there. So I was trying to become a man without knowing all of the things I needed to know about how to do that
Mm.
because I left at a younger age and my dad was gone so long. So most of the fathering that I ended up learning, like I said, from other people that I would bring into my life that helped. So yeah, it took me a while to realize that. And then as I got older, your parents that you have around you always get smarter the older you get. Right? You loved your mother. You said your mother never took a welfare check a day in her
Nope.
life. She worked hard, busted her butt to do whatever she could to provide for you kids. And
Mhm.
I realized the older I get, the more I realize that's what my dad was doing. And also growing up in that small town, he didn't have a better example. His dad worked in the lumber mill all of his life. So he didn't have a better example to teach him how to be a better father to me. And I kind of had to go learn how to become a good father on my own with the help of some other older men in my life.
Wow. Okay. So, because I've always, every person I ask that's in business and successful like yourself, I always try to find a balance,
Yeah.
because and I'll get into that in a little bit. It is hard for me because I'm
Yeah.
so driven. Being a fighter, you're a driven. It's
Sure.
you're a
Yeah.
driven guy, and
Yeah.
scratching from the bottom and not having, and you always, you're always worried in the back of your mind. Oh, it could go bad quick.
Yeah.
That's why I've always struggled with that for some reason.
I teach on the show a lot that there's no such thing as balance, but
Mhm.
life, in my opinion, and the way that I have learned to make it work in my family, my business, my career, my relationships, life is a pendulum. It's not a balance beam. Because if you're on a balance beam, any little thing that comes along is going to knock you off. But when you look at it more like a pendulum, if something comes along that adds more weight on one side, it just swings to the other side, and you learn how to leave some
Mhm.
off over here or whittle some off. You give some time where it's needed, and that you allow that pendulum to swing back to your true north is where you're heading, right? Your goals,
Mhm.
your dreams, your business plan. But as the struggles of life come and whittle away, you see that pendulum swing the other way. You need to come and spend some time there, but you don't need to hang out there.
Mhm.
Because if you do, then your business is going to suffer. Your relationships
Yeah.
are going to suffer in other areas. So I'm constantly using my three finite resources. I have a finite amount of funds. I have a finite amount of energy, personal energy, and then a finite amount of time.
Mhm.
Once it's spent, we can't get any more back, right? So
Right.
I'm constantly using my pendulum to determine where I spend those three resources and spend
Yeah.
them wisely. And it does. I find that, when you're riding a bicycle, if you just hold the front wheel straight, you'll fall over. When you're learning to ride a bike, you got to move that tire back and forth a
Yeah.
little bit until you get your speed up.
Yeah.
Once you get your speed up, you have momentum. And
Mhm.
if you can maintain momentum, you don't have to fish your front tire anymore, right?
Right.
It's simple example from when we were little kids. A lot of kids these days don't even know how to ride a bike. So anyway,
No. No.
you know,
It's
but that's
electric bike, I guess. But
I like you. I walked to work a lot when I was a kid till I got my
Mhm.
first bike,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
rode my bike to work.
We didn't get that. That was not on the table, that option. So unless we stole it, which
Oh yeah.
my
Well,
brothers,
hey,
it could have been that way.
we have
Uh,
a lot more in common than you probably know.
all right. So anyway, I get there and I'm doing Garrity's. Things are going great.
Yeah.
I brought my partners out. Things are going great. I actually took a little bit of the equity out, redid my store, named it Georgie Bagels because they called me that in school. Georgie Bagels. I was the only guy.
Yeah.
I was 14, worked the bagel shop. Hey, Georgie Bagels. It was like the mafia almost.
It's
Everyone
like
had a
the
nickname.
mafia. Everyone has
Had
a
a
nickname,
nickname.
right?
So everything was going fine, and I started dating an employee of mine at the time. She was of age. It was, but it was only the time I was 20,
Oh yeah.
24
Oh
or
yeah.
something, and she was 18, and she worked. I'd seen her go through the school system, and I knew her going through it, and she worked for me. She asked me for a job. She worked for me. So, and then we got very close. I started dating her. We dated for probably 10 years, yeah, almost 10, over 7 years, before we got married. And at the time, things were really good. Okay. And this is the thing. So they're seeing it, or she was seeing it in a relationship as, wow, it's really, she came in here. You know what I mean? Like came in the middle of the transaction of me going up.
Yeah.
So she was here. So she didn't see this. She didn't see me sleeping in the office. She didn't see me
Yeah.
falling asleep at a red light in a van, delivering bagels at 2:30 in the morning. She didn't see that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sacrifices that you're going to make as a business owner because you want to get to the other side.
Yes, sir.
And one of my friends who's a multimillionaire says, "Hey, man, come on over to this side. It's good over here."
Yeah.
And he tries to throw me little ropes over and say, "You got to come over here. I want you to do these things, not this thing, these things." And sometimes I don't listen, and it's taking me longer. So,
Oh
what
yeah.
my point is, the people who see your sacrifice that you have, the ones that are with you, that are still with you now, the James Wilsons, the Mr. Wilsons, the coach, the Joe, he saw the struggles. They saw my struggle. So they're still with me now. She didn't really see that. So the coach purses, the Louis Vuitton bags, the vacations, the casino trips, that adds up.
That does add up.
So when you
Yes,
do
it does.
that and not put back into the business, you take your eye off of it. Well, we get two kids. Now we have two kids. And in 2008, the housing crisis hits, which I didn't know if were you in real estate at that time?
No.
Okay.
Not yet. I was selling furniture
Okay.
when the bubble popped, 2008, 2009.
Oh.
Furniture Row, I was top 10 in the nation in living room furniture sales.
Hmm.
And bottom fell out, and we couldn't give away furniture. And I
Hmm.
went out and took a route job to feed my kids.
Right.
While I worked my way, that route job is what led me into real estate.
Great. So again, a pivot that you weren't expecting in your life.
Exactly not. You're right.
I didn't expect, like, why would the housing market affect me? Now, we'd been through one already. 2001, we had the dot-com boom. When I started,
Oh, yeah.
interest rates were zero. It was
Yeah.
great for us. We didn't, nothing really affected me much. People
Yeah.
would go back to their homes to grab the equity. If they lost their job in tech, they, get the equity. This affected everybody across the board. Across the board. Now, I had contracts with some of the biggest universities, the Garrity's, they're going by half pennies cutting.
Oh, man.
We're volume.
Yeah.
And we were just like, I can't deliver for that. Lost that contract. The very next day, my second largest contract pulled out.
Mm.
So you're talking almost 600,000.
Yeah.
600,000 in 2 days.
That's
An
a gut punch. How
incredible.
do you recover from that?
Well, it took a long time. Like, I spun out of control. I thought I was getting things together. Now, I said, okay, well, at least I have my wife to really solidify something here for me. And I thought that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought for myself, okay, we can get through it together. As this is going on, I decide to open another location.
I'll expand.
I'll
My
expand.
two biggest clients pulled out. I'll expand.
I'll expand and go west because I just
Yeah.
got all the colleges to the west. Hey, everybody knows Georgie Bagels. I'm an icon, right?
Yeah.
Found out real quickly you're not. Didn't work. And then a small, tiny company named the IRS
Mm-hmm.
hit me with a $77,000 freeze on my account.
Mm.
I didn't even know. I had no clue. Not a single clue. I didn't, because at the time when we were doing all this stuff, and comes back, I'm just writing checks for people. I didn't even know work there. I didn't even work there. I just was signing checks. But at the time, they switched over to e-filing. I used to take my withholding and just go to the bank. Just go to the bank and they deposit it for you. I never did it. I just thought, I guess we don't pay it or whatever, because I'm not really into that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a good accountant at the time. Turns out my uncle, fortunately, was he was the vice president of Bank of New York for years. So he's a big finance guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he helped me out. He's like, hey, you got to pay this bill. This is bad. And he even was on a first name basis with an IRS agent. They were like, nah, 77 grand you're owed. We sent millions with tons of letters. We never got a correspondent. He's on the hook. They wouldn't even take off the penalties.
Yeah.
Nope. And I didn't know. So, to make a long story short, that set me back even further, where I was like, this is really, really bad. So I thought, let's buckle down. We started to turn it again out. Now we started turning it. I got 3 of the largest universities on the West Coast, on the west side of, on the west of us, Central PA, not Western PA, Central.
Yeah.
We got them, Bucknell University, Lycoming College, Susquehanna University. Bucknell, huge college, high end. And I got it, became friends with the CEO of Eaton Park, Jeff Broadhurst, great guy. I use him as a mentor when I can.
Uh-huh.
Got that going. Things are going good. We're starting to come out of the hole. I get hit with divorce papers.
Mm.
So you talk at October 8th, I'll never forget the day, because I wasn't home.
Yeah.
I took my eye off of that. It's a 1-to-1 correlation. Business good, family home bad. Exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Family life good, your business will be bad. So it's the balance act that's hard to do as a business owner.
It is.
And it's the hardest. That was probably, so now you lost all those accounts up there. That's a gut shot. Then the other one, then the divorce. It was, and then that really started. Then the real tidal waves are coming. So for 3 years, we struggled to try to get back. It was a 3-year back and forth. We're going to get back together or not, from 2016 to 2019. It just didn't work, because there was no way. Her transgressions were beyond fixable. Like you live in a small town.
Everyone knows.
Oh, front page day.
Everyone knows.
It was bad, really bad.
Yeah.
So what I had to do was focus on me. So for the first time in 20 some years, I focused on me. So I'm thinking everything was good. I got back into the ring again, 40 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, I was in great shape. Do it again.
Working out, training.
We're ready to go. I fight. Boom. We're going to have a rematch again. I'm thinking everything's good. COVID hits. They're shutting down the restaurants. Ugh. How is that? I'm thinking, what? Can I get a break every time I get? And honestly, I struggled with my faith at that point.
Yeah.
Because you just like, man, I just need a break. I was begging for a break.
You really do start, and people tell me these stories, and we share them a lot on the show, and I've shared mine. And you can think your faith is very strong when everything's going right. Mm-hmm. And you think that everything's going right because of favor in your life coming from the Lord. You're doing all the right things. He's blessing. But then he's also, it seems like he'll be the first one that we question when things aren't going right. We're like, why are you doing this to me? Or why are you letting me go through this? Right. What have I done? And that many people are sitting in the chair right where you are now, questioning their faith.
And here's the craziest thing. And this is how I know it's real. So here I am sitting, all the chairs are out, the restaurant. I'm sitting in the corner, just doing my bills. Now, I was fortunate that when we divorced, we separated all the equity.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though I had everything before, we separated it. So I said, might as well take all the equity out. I have my money. You have your money. So COVID hits. I have money in the bank sitting there. So I wasn't unbelievably strapped. So I sit there and a person rolls up in a car. I look out, attractive woman walks in. This time I was officially divorced. I said, that's it. It's over. We had the paperwork, everything was signed. And I never even thought of anything prior to that.
Sure.
She walks in, introduces herself. And I said, wait a minute. Are you related to RJ? Because this guy named RJ Norse had just passed away. 48 years old. He was the administrator at the school. And she said, I was his wife. I was like, oh, I am so sorry. Like I knew RJ well, but I didn't know you. I don't know who you are. I know your boys. They come into the shop. And she's like, yeah, they're home from school because they were in college and they sent them home. RJ used to come in because she's a school teacher herself. She's like, he used to come in and get this stuff with the boys and come home.
Yeah.
He died suddenly. He had a heart transplant. Then he broke his leg and he got sepsis and passed.
Oh man. So
I didn't know her. She comes in, we start talking. And she, unfortunately, one of our conversations was, I was like, oh, I'm sorry. She goes, I know your story too. And I'm like, oh, jeez. So it was kind of.
It gets around fast, doesn't it?
Yeah. So like, well, she was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, hey, that's what it is. I'm good. And it was a 6-year process. That divorce was 6 years. So we talk, and then she'd come in the next day. We talk. The next day we talk, and she'd always come in first, the kids. And we almost bonded in that whole, she was struggling. She, her husband had passed prior to that. And I had gone through a horrible divorce.
It's a loss. When you go through a divorce, it's like a loss. It's like a death. It is.
Some people say it's harder because you're going to see that person all the time.
You're going to see him again.
Yep. So we just kind of connected on that. Now, here's the crazy thing why I believe. Because at the time where where I was officially getting divorced, okay, her husband was going through that thing and being very sick, but I wasn't ready to move on. So it was almost exactly at that time where she'd gone through a horrible, you lose your husband at 40-some years old.
Yeah.
It's a horrible situation.
For a lady, especially, you think that your life is over and I'm too old. No one's going to want me again. They go through all of the fear, the doubt, the anguish as well. It's incredible.
Going to college.
So fast track, you end up marrying this lady.
I
She's
ended
the
up
love of
marrying her.
your life.
Yep, right now, where there we are. We dated for 3 years,
Yeah.
and then we got married. And that's why I say, wow, as bad as you think it's going to be,
Yeah.
that door will open at some point. And
Yes,
that's
it
where I
will.
was. And at that COVID, now things are starting to go good. And for
What did
some
you
reason,
do? And what did you do? Um, my friend with the pizza joint here that's
Mhm.
watching, he's the one that put up the comment there that said Patrick Lee for mayor. He's very thankful I fixed his mixer. But COVID, COVID gave his business a shot in the arm as well with a
Oh,
pizza joint, and
yep.
they started doing door side pickup and delivery, and
Mhm.
his business grew in COVID. What did you do during COVID
Okay,
um,
that's a
to get
great
through
question.
this?
Great question, because our colleges were shut down, a big
Yeah,
source of my income.
exactly.
But the retail 3x'd. The
Really?
retail, I just think I outlasted everybody. I
Yeah.
just think I did, because I know 2 coffee shops that were there. They're out now. Dunkin' Donuts closed. They essentially
Wow.
closed. It's a big franchise like
We
that.
lost the Dunkin' Donuts here in Amarillo, 200,000 people. They shut one down.
It's open now. It's open, but they shut it. Like, 'cause number one, they didn't have the help. Number
Yeah.
two, it was like drive-through only. The line would go down the main drag. People were like,
Yeah.
I can't wait. So I picked up some from there. I was so fortunate to have 2 employees who worked at a restaurant that went out, 2 managers that are here now with me. Great workers, phenomenal. Couldn't ask for
Yeah.
anything else. Which has allowed me to do this now, podcasting that I
Yeah.
want to do. So everything just kind of flowed to where it was at 3x in my business. Even my accountant, we just did our taxes. He's like, wow, that's pretty good considering where you were.
Given,
And then,
let me ask you this, given
sure.
where you came from,
Mhm.
George,
Yep.
do you think that growing up, going to work in the bagel shop at 14 years old, jogging to 21 miles, 21 freaking miles? Are
21.
you kidding me?
21.
21 miles to
Yep.
work. Do you would you attribute that as the number one reason you outlasted your competition? Is the tenacity, the grit, the determination you developed at 14 years old
I would say
to succeed?
100%. I think I'm just
100%.
cut from fighters are cut from a different cloth, and entrepreneurs, they're cut
Yes.
from a different cloth. They just are. We will do whatever it takes, and we'll go through any nuclear bomb, like we were talking about
Yeah.
before, to
Yeah.
get what we want. We'll go through anything to get what we want, and it's something that's in you. Because I know a lot of people would have quit, and believe me, I almost quit, but I
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't. There was nothing that was going to stop me.
Well, we in the South, we just call it quitting sense. Some people just don't have any quitting sense. And that means knowing when to quit. We're just bullheaded, stubborn. And like I said, I moved here when I was 19, fixing to be 20. And so I wasn't born here. I like to say I got here as quick as I could and
Mhm.
have adopted that mentality as a Texan. But I believe 100%. I got into real estate in 2013. The market was decent, but very low priced homes.
Mhm.
And I had a lot of people that called me a 2 year guy. They were like, "Yeah, he'll do this for about 2 years. Then he'll go
Mhm.
do something else for about 2 years."
Mhm.
But sticking it out in the bakery game, I worked in the bakeries off and on for over 20 years. I owned 3 other small businesses, owned a popcorn shop in the food court in a mall in New Mexico for a couple of years. And
Right.
the lady I bought that from called me a 2 year man. And it's been stuck in my craw ever since. I've never
Yeah.
gotten that comment that lady made to my wife about me. Yeah, Patrick's a 2 year man. And
Hmm.
that became one of those things that I used to drive me forward to never allow myself to adopt the words that someone else put on me and attach them to myself. I constantly have to brush those words and comments off. In the real estate game, we have a lot of agents that have come and gone. I was watching
Mhm.
some of your shows. You're mentioning your friend Mark that was on there. He's at EXP Realty, just like I am.
Greg.
We've seen so many agents get their license during COVID because you could just throw a rock, hit a house, and someone wanted to sell it, and there were a bunch of people that wanted to buy it. The prices went through the roof.
Right.
So a lot of agents found it very easy to start their own business and become a 1099er like you and me,
Mhm.
having a company and being responsible for our own income. But now that interest rates are up, inventories are low, it's a lot harder if you don't have the chops. It's going to be a lot harder for you to help people buy and sell homes, and they're dropping like flies.
Right.
So the people that have the grit, the determination, some people that have been through something, I believe, if you are the ones that are going to stick around. And if you haven't been through something, you had better adopt a mentor, a plan, put together a new plan, because in today's um, business climate, especially for small business, if you don't adapt and change, you're a goner, right? You're just dead in the water.
Let me ask you a question again, Patrick, if I could. Where do you see the market now? Because
The
I get
real
that
estate,
question a lot. Real estate
yeah,
market, where do you see it
the real
now?
estate market, that's the number one question we get all the time. I am infinitely confident in the real estate market. I just believe that people need to use wisdom and hire a competent real estate professional, a licensed realtor, to help them navigate the waters that we're going through right now. Inventory, and your market is probably different than mine. Our average sales price, I've been sharing with you earlier, went from 165 when I started, 165,000 up to nearly 300,000. So the amount of money that you make per transaction has gone up based on the price of the homes, but the amount of transactions you do has to go up as well for our income to match what the economy is doing.
Mhm.
So with interest rates right now being in the mid sevens, for example, I bought my personal home in 2002 and it was 7% interest rate. Okay, so here we are 21 years later, and we're back at a 7% interest rate. So the market is actually average over the past 50 years. Rates are average, they're right in the middle of where they were. In the late 80s and 90s, interest rates were over 18%. So as long as you have inventory and you have a professional that can help you navigate the waters of buying and selling homes, I am very confident in the market. I believe that new leadership in our government is necessary. I don't know that I could stress that enough on the show, because the government is not making it easier on small business owners like yourself and myself. Our regulations are way too strict, and the new legislation that continues to get passed is not as beneficial to small business. Now, luckily in the state of Texas, we have great representation here in the capital of Texas
Mhm.
with the Texas Realtors Association, and they have a statement out here. I don't know that I like it, but a lot of people have adopted it, that says it's not a red problem or a blue problem, it's a purple solution. So the people in leadership at the Texas State Realtors Association are going to support the representatives, the senators, the people that are going to be the most beneficial for our industry,
Mhm.
whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. And that's a conversation for another day. But they're going to support the people that support us and our industry. So I would
Mhm.
recommend that people get to know who their state representatives are, get to know who some of these leaders are in these big corporations, because they do sway or have some influence in the decisions that are made on the state level. So I'm confident in the market. I believe in Texas we have great leadership in place that's going to help us. And with and the best thing I can say about the market is what we've been talking about. Coming from where I've come from, coming from where you have come from, I believe that we're going to be successful because of who we are, not because of what the market does.
Well, I'll tell you two things. Number one, you do have a great governor. I like Governor Abbott. I do. I really do.
Agreed. Yeah.
I do. Second thing is, one of the things you said was, now you got into podcasting. That girl said that to you, that you're a 2-year guy,
Yeah.
and you let her tell your story. And
Yeah.
now you're on your own podcast. You get to tell your story. And
That's
it's
right.
and because if you let someone else tell your story, your story, that's the story people are going to believe.
That's right.
And I love how you were going to tell your story. That's very big for me.
100%. We've got just a couple of minutes to finish up here. Let's get into your podcast. How did you decide you're going to start a podcast? Tell us a little bit about your show and how people can get a hold of you as well.
Well, it's the Zapata Brand Podcast. It was a podcast I wanted to always do for 3 years, but it's a mixture of stuff. I have real estate guys, I have leadership, I have sports guys, I have celebrities on. It's more of like, let's just see where it goes. I mean, it's a broad band of everything. I wanted to do it because I always wanted to be a boxing analyst as growing up.
Right.
I just didn't know where to turn. And now it's so easy now to buy a Roadcaster and buy a Rode mic, and you're good. And you can put it, and you can hear it. You have StreamYard. Hey, it's easy to do, and I get to connect with people like you. And that's something that I've always wanted to do. Talk to any walk of life. I have Rita Gigante coming in. Her dad was the head of the mafia in New York. It's coming on in studio.
Great friends with Rudy Giuliani, I'm sure.
No, not much.
Probably not much.
No, not any longer. We had Greg
not anymore.
On. We had Bo Orlando.
Not on the Christmas list.
No, she would not be. And a matter of fact, Rita lived 2 towns over from me when I was living in Jersey. She's from Old Tappan. She was in Old Tappan. Wow. It's crazy.
Well, Greg, you had Greg on your show.
Yes.
He was the largest biceps in the world.
Largest arms in the world.
Largest arms in the world.
An absolute character. And he was in studio as well, Rita Gigante. But I'm trying to do more of the StreamYard. I think it's just easier to contact him. And but Greg is a great guy. I mean, he's a little off the wall and a little kooky, but he's a great guy. I mean, a humble guy, you wouldn't believe it. And even like I had Bo Orlando on this week, a humble guy, 10-year NFL vet, just humble people, and that you connect with and you can talk to. I was talking to Greg. I never met the guy. I was talking to him like I've known for 20 years.
That's awesome. I tell you what, you're right. Coming to StreamYard, one of my friends, he was my video coach, Nick Krim, has Krim AI, Krim International, and he's from Ohio. Him and his brother Michael were from the Ohio area. A couple of punk kids. I was 51. He was like 26, telling me I need to be doing video. This is 7 years ago. So 5 years ago. You're an old white guy. You need to be doing video if you want to be relevant, Patrick. You got to be doing video. You got to put your face in front of other people. I'm like, I don't want to do video. And what I really wanted to do was this, like you, speak to people, motivate people. He goes, if you could do video, what would you talk about? I said, probably finding ways to help people do better in life. I mean, people did it for me. That one guy that handed me that cassette tape in that burger joint drive-through window was an owner partner of that place. And he just saw something in me, the grit, the determination, the tenacity, and handed me a cassette that really changed my path. And I'm like, if someone would do that for me, don't I owe it to do that to myself, to do that to other people and give them some? Maybe this podcast will motivate one person to change the way they think about business and success. And maybe they want to get into the personal development space when they become successful and help someone else.
Well, I'll tell you, you got it, brother. You got it. You definitely have it. And I look forward to seeing your success as you go through this podcasting thing. And by the way, those 2 from Ohio, yeah, they're punks. We are Penn State. Penn State.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it. I love it. Well, people can find you. Where can they find your podcast at?
You go to YouTube at the Zapata Brand Podcast. We have multiple videos up there. You could just pick and choose a multitude of different things of leadership and what have you. Sports. We do boxing with my brother. He's one of the coaches there too, and Coach Leo also. But the bagel shop is Georgie Bagels in Berwick, PA, where they're 364 days a year, open every day, 6 to 2.
Wow, man, I love it. Hey, here's a tip for you. Go to buzzsprout.com. Buzzsprout.com, and for a small monthly subscription fee, they will put your podcast on every major podcast platform, all with one upload.
Yes,
you'll be on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes. You'll be everywhere. I love it. I look forward to seeing more of your podcast, and maybe we'll have you back on, and we'll do a recurring show, and we'll talk about business, life, motivation, and bagels.
I'm all for it. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be on your show, Patrick.
I have been so honored to have you on, George. We'll talk to you soon, my brother. Have a great day. Everyone, you know what we always say here at the end of the show, Courage begins at the end of your comfort zone. So go out there and get uncomfortable today. Make a new friend, start a new relationship, do something to be successful in life. Don't quit moving forward. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.